Hello, everybody, and welcome to Everyone Deserves a Chance. Today, we have a guest that is dear to me. We met in Mexico on a retreat last year, I believe. Her name is Giovanna Elias. And Giovanna, please allow me to read your bio. I have it here in my email. It's a short one, by the way. The long version I didn't get yet. We could all agree that the greatest, most basic things we need to survive in life is wholesome food and water. And, big end, research is now showing that social bonding and human connections are up there with our basic human needs. Giovanna Elias, Val, is a human connection and communication expert, empowering professionals to resolve people's problems, perfect the art of people, and connect on a deeply authentic level. She believes the quality of your life is based off the quality of your relationships, which is why she teaches you through her 9 key connections code system how to have powerful connections in your work life, family, friendships, romantically, and when meeting new people. Giovanna, welcome to our show, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Giovanna, I would like to ask you deeper questions, but first, can you please tell us, how did you end up having this role? How did you discover your why, and how did you come up to in being an expert in relationships?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Thank you again for having me, by the way. I would say that initially when I had went to school, I first studied communications and human rights law. And so having studied all of this, I was learning about all the atrocities in the world, all the problems on a national and an international level. And I would wonder, how do people behave in such a way? How can we do such hatred, ugly, negative things to each other? And so I had initially gotten my degree in that. And then I went back to school for holistic medicine. And so then I started learning more about the internal conflicts, the things that go on within ourselves. And so holistic health really looks like looking at the body from a physical, a mental, emotional, and an energetic or spiritual perspective. So I started then analyzing myself, analyzing people, what's internally going on within us. And I'm like, okay, how do I bridge these two worlds together? So in midst of discovering all of this, I then spent 12 years traveling the world and analyzing human behavior, learning different cultures, studying different languages, and thinking, why do we do what we do? Why do we behave the way we do? Why do we have the conflicts that we do? And so I decided to merge all of this learning, this knowledge, this information together, and ended up coming to realize that everything really boils down to our relationships, how we communicate with each other, and how we connect.
That's awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm going to give a little bit of insight here. And we had a little conversation right before this call, and I was bringing you into my emotional roller coaster, right? Telling you how my life turned into a living miracle. I'm not going to use the bad words. Because I do not find the feelings, I was able to put them in a place where they're not even reachable to me. And this is a trait that looks like a lot of men suffer from. And especially in the syndication model, and I'm going to do a plug here. I'm a syndicator. I work with Legends Equity Group, and we do real estate. We do commercial real estate syndications. And I found out in my last meetings in the last few months that a lot of the people that I network with had the same exact issues that I'm having. And it came very close to me that my wife and I, we got into, I would not even say in an argument or a clinch because it wasn't there. We almost got separated because lack of communication. And now imagine this, I'm in sales, right? I'm always selling a product because I'm not selling anything, but I'm always selling something because of the connections that I'm making. This is the reason why these connections are done. Sales is nothing else but connections. You have to understand the issue, you have to understand the person, and then if there's a need there, you can fulfill it. That's the sale. Now, selling happens at home as it's a different perspective. Grant Cardone told me that. He says, dude, I'm selling my wife on my ideas every day. God damn it, I never put it that way, but I guess I am. So I wonder what happens in reverse. Is she selling me or her ideas all the time and I agree with them, or just a transactional love that we go through, or what's going on with the real feelings? Because as a man, super busy, doing a million things at once, keeping track of feelings is not in my schedule. You mentioned something, Silvius, it's easy to ask yourself, what do you feel about this thing? Or ask your body. I'm 43 years old. I started my personal journey at 36, 37. So I'm not extremely developed in that direction. I have 5, 6, 7 years that I'm going on. I've never, ever got to the point where I can reach my feelings, especially through my body. And I studied Reiki. I went down on the hypnosis path. I've learned few tricks and I put couple of tools in my toolbox. But what would be the beginning, let's put it, a beginning session for a man that is looking to harmonize his relationship at home by becoming a dad first and a businessman second, or a family guy first and a businessman second?
It's an excellent question. Of course, every individual has their own path for sure. And there's two sort of directions I want to go with this. One, I think it's beautiful that you're specifically speaking to men, because I think that men are not necessarily socially encouraged to express themselves or tune into their emotions as much as women are. Now, that is changing now with the generations, but I would say certainly men of their mid-30s upwards really do struggle to understand what is even going on internally within themselves. So I'll say this. We technically have three brains. We have our obvious brain, the one everybody knows here. We've got our heart signaling to us, and then we've got our stomach, our gut. And we're always receiving information from these three brains. And so where I would start with anybody when we're talking emotions, you said that you've never really known how to tune into your emotions, and this is something new to you in the last maybe decade or less, and you're still discovering what that means, and you've done a bunch of different things to understand it. And I would say the most obvious place to start is listening into the signals from these three brains. And so your body, our bodies are always speaking to us. They're always responding. And so that could look like your heart rate speeding up. That could look like maybe clenching in your stomach, maybe that butterflies feeling. It could look like a bit of jittering or shakiness. It could look like overthinking and just running around with thoughts and thoughts and thoughts, and it feels like it's never being quiet. And so when we notice that our body is starting to respond in what I would say a contractual way, so it's like we're contracting, we're stressed, then I would take that moment and say, okay, what's going on here? It's literally a moment to pause, breathe in, release, and then ask yourself, okay, my stomach's tight. What could that be about? Did I just have a thought? Am I in a place that's uncomfortable? Did I just have a conversation that was uncomfortable? Did I just get into a fight? Am I somewhere that I don't really want to be? Anything like that. And now you're starting to dialogue with yourself and have a greater understanding, and you're building awareness, you're building consciousness in yourself.
I don't like using bad words, but you forced me with saying something here. You know what a man says when feelings show up like that from the body? I have sweaty palms sometimes, right? Or I feel stressed, like I'm clenching.
Yeah.
You know what I say to myself? And this is, I bet that probably over 90% of the men listening to this feel the same way. Don't be a fucking pussy.
Yeah.
That's what I say to myself all the time. So I take that feeling, whatever it was, and I hide it somewhere where my body doesn't even, it gets numb, doesn't even react to it. And I'm so good at it because I've been doing this for 43 years, right?
Yeah, it's an avoidance technique. It's unconsciously you're saying, okay, let's shelf that over here so that way I can move forwards with my life over here. The only thing is eventually that catches up to you, and eventually you get blocked along the way, and there's struggles and conflicts and issues, particularly in our relationships and also in our health. This is a large reason why people end up getting diseases, because they've pushed down emotions over the years, which now needs to show up in the physical body. So it's stress, it's ongoing stress and cortisol being released in the body that now can then create more issues long term. So in a moment like that, when you're saying, okay, fuck this, don't be a pussy, put it aside, I would say you can take it in two approaches. And what I mean by this is acknowledge the feeling, and that doesn't mean you can't still continue moving forwards. So it doesn't mean stop everything you're doing, halt your life, you can't continue on your path and goals. It just means acknowledge what's coming up, because there's something there, there's gold that's there. There's material there for you that your body is trying to tell you that is a huge access into actually maybe even something greater for this path that you're about to go on as well. But you need to acknowledge it. And what that could simply look is, I recognize my palms are sweating, for example. What could this be about? Is it X, Y, and Z? Okay, maybe right now I don't have time to address that because I'm at a conference, because I'm in a meeting, because something's important. However, I'm going to address it tonight when I get home. And now you go back to focusing on where you are at and what you're doing. Or you address it in the moment, take an hour aside, go for a walk in nature, understand yourself, journal, breath work. There's a variety of different exercises you could do, and then go back to focusing on what you need. So it doesn't mean put your whole life on pause. I'm still a very big advocate for stepping into the masculine, if we were to say this is the masculine, the goal-driven, oriented direction. But we also need to be very present to what's taking place over here. Because if we're not, then it's going to create problems over there long term.
I can tell you I'm here with you. I can tell you I'm not. I never even had the concept of acknowledging for a man comes this way. If I'm going to acknowledge it, I'm going to do something about it. That's my definition. I'm a man. It's not, I cannot postpone it. So if it comes in, I got to stop everything I'm doing and see what the hell is going on.
Okay.
But at the same time, I found it maybe a little bit easier to just tuck it away, disregard it, move on, and never come back to the same place. Because I don't remember when was the last time I asked myself, but what I've developed though, I can turn off the sweaty palms the same way they'd get on.
So funny that you say this, because our brain doesn't know the difference between fear versus excitement. So it's going to experience the same physiological response, which is the sweaty palms, the increased heart rate. The body is physiologically responding to that fear as it would to excitement. So you could tell yourself in a moment when your palms are sweating, your heart rate's racing, you could say to yourself, oh, I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to this. I'm pumped. And it will allow you to then move in that direction of excitement, which is actually extremely healthy if we're ever in a moment, let's say, needing to give a speech or a presentation. Naturally, a lot of people get like fright from having to go up and present in front of people. So to tell yourself this physiological response is actually excitement is a beautiful thing, because you'll give a great presentation. However, to ongoingly do that when it's regarding our relationships, for example, family life and relationship problems, your kids, your wife, your partner, whomever, that is just pushing something aside that's long-term going to create an issue.
I love your beautiful perspective on it, but the reality is I'm not telling myself that I'm excited. I'm just telling myself, turn it off, dude. Shut it down. Kill it. Put it down. This is not a time. So what I'm doing, I feel like I'm suppressing the feeling that is about to come up. And I think it has a lot to do with vulnerability. It happens most of the times exactly when I have to step on stage, or I have to have a speech, or I have to talk to a whole bunch of people. Mostly when I know they're smarter than me. It happens when I walk in, I do the assessment, I'm like, oh God, all these guys, they're all these CEOs on these big companies. And that's when I start talking the talk and the bullshit talk in my head and takes over, and then all these feelings are coming up right before I start talking. When I start talking, I have to focus on certain exact scenarios that I prepare from home. So what I'm trying to say is that you are thinking very nicely about us and moving into the excitement. That would be awesome if I could have done that. But reality is I'm not. I'm suppressing it, and I'm putting it somewhere so deep down that I cannot even reach it myself. If I go home an hour later or even 3 hours later and think about it, I don't even know where to start.
So that's actually a really good point. And what I actually suggest this to my clients, and it's what I've created, and I call it day scans. And so I literally get my clients for the last 10 or 15 minutes of every day to go through their day and list off everything that they've done. So not in complete detail, just woke up, went to the gym, ate a smoothie, went to work, had this presentation, went grocery shopping, very basic, right? And
I'm going to take a note right now. So good.
It's great. It's good.
Yeah.
I love note takers, best students. But beside every task, everything that they've done throughout the day, I get them to write down 1 or 2 feelings that they experienced. So maybe it made them feel more energized, more excited, more connected, maybe more stressed, more drained. So even just simply having that awareness of at what point throughout the day your energy started shifting. And did it expand or did it contract? And did you feel more energized in the company of somebody or more drained? And did the job you're doing fulfill you or did it stress you? And sure, we can say one evening, one day, looking at one day is not enough. But if you look at patterns over the point of a week or a month or 6 months, now you're going to start to notice that same person you're always talking to doesn't feel fulfilling, or that same job you're doing is constantly stressing you. Or maybe when you go to the gym or have those really connected dates with your wife, you feel really good. So having that awareness in and of itself will show you, okay, I emotionally feel good in this place. I emotionally feel drained in that place. Do I want to be doing more or less of these? And what kind of conversations do I need to be having to make changes?
I'm going to call this emotional test.
Sure. I call them day scans. You're literally just scanning your day, but you can call it whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, this is so cool. So yeah, I never had this. I'm so amazed all the time when I have these meaningful conversations with people like you, because I'm a constant learner. So if this podcast is doing anything, I think I'm the first one who takes all the benefits, because I'm the one who takes the notes. I'm the one who listens to, and I'm the one who pays attention to them, right? Yes, I appreciate it. It's definitely a one-on-one conversation here to be had with myself. Now, let's walk the steps. So let's say you do these physical scans and you figured out if you're into a W-2, there are few things that you can probably do to better the days and better your emotions. If you're onto the entrepreneurial side where you own the business and you decide, maybe you can create a little bit more room. How do you make this permanent? Is this a part of your morning routine or?
How do I make day scans permanent?
Yeah.
So literally it would be a task every single night before going to bed because it's a reflection of the day. So at the end of every day, I've got my journal always sitting beside my bed. That way I know it's an anchor, it's a conditioned piece. The moment I look at the journal as I go to sleep, I know that I then sit down and I just go through it and I write out very quickly, like I said, 10 minutes maybe.
I wrote down journal 15 minutes for the day scan. Now the question is, when I have specific habits when I go to sleep, right? So before I go to bed, I usually schedule my next day.
Yeah, that's great too.
So that's what I do. It's part of the miracle morning, the miracle evening. In the morning, I do the pre-planning for the day, but it's actually a reiteration of what I did at nighttime before I go to bed. So I give my subconscious the commands during my sleep to start working on the tasks that I'm going to start picking up in the morning for the first thing. So I would not go to bed upset, by the way. So if I would do the 10-minute scan and I'll find the feelings that put me down for the day, I'm going to have to rewrite something there to actually make it good. So how do I do that?
So that's an excellent question. I wouldn't treat the scan as something to necessarily bring up emotions. I would treat it as facts. So you're really observing it from a third person point of view and saying, these are the facts. This is what I did today, and this is how this thing made me feel. So I'm not suggesting go into that full depth of the feeling. It's just recognizing what the feeling is. Now, with that being said, if you really did have a challenging day, you may still be going to sleep with that energy in you anyways, that unsettled feeling in you anyways, whether you're aware of it or not. And so I always recommend to people after doing a day scan to end their day with breath work and a meditation. And that is really observing. You can even observe in the meditative state what took place, almost like watching your day like a movie and observing what took place in the day and what would you have liked to have done differently.
All right, that changes a little bit. Yeah, breath work. Right last week, before you came into my podcast, I had a guy, Salvatore, who does breath work.
Right.
And it's happening that I watched a guy, Hal Elrod, in one of the communities that I'm part of, Front Row Dads. We're about 300 of us through the world. And Hal Elrod is the guy that wrote Miracle Morning, the book.
Yeah.
And in that context, he came in and he asked me a couple of things, not me directly. He was asking everybody else. And one of the things he said, I've learned this through my breath work. I recorded that. And then he said, as a practice throughout the day, he does something very interesting. he sits down with himself outside for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, out in nature, grounding, without doing any work. No breath work, no meditation, nothing. Just allow yourself to be in the space and see what thoughts come to you and then collect them on a journal.
Yeah.
That was part of the exercise. What came to me when I did the 30 minutes, my first 30 minutes, it came breath work. So I looked up my CRM, right, with people that I know, and I'm like, who does breath work? And I see Salvatore, and right away I texted him. He got back to me in a second. I'm like, where are you on the globe? He says somewhere in Netherlands or Finland. He was in Finland this time.
Okay.
The nomad. And I'm like, can you come in on my show? I really need to know more about breath work. Maybe you can give us a couple of exercises. And breath work comes in pretty much bringing you into your awareness, bringing you to the present moment. And I tried doing that at the gym. It's scary because I was seeing something on the window. I was looking outside and I was seeing some bugs crawling on the window, things that I would never notice. Like I'm looking out in the woods far away, but I will not see what's right in front of me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, God damn it, I'm so close to reality. Like it almost scared me. So I don't think as a man, I'm living mostly into my reality day to day. And I think this is, and part of my misunderstanding is I think this is a woman's thing, right? You guys are more connected with yourself and more connected with your awareness than anything else. Misconception.
Yeah, definitely don't think so. I see a lot of women that are out to lunch as well. And I have seen men that are also very present. So,
I'm in a land here. So I'm on uncharted territories, right? Speaking my mind and not necessarily the truth when it comes down to this. But what I feel is men do maybe these exercises in order to be present, right? And I'm not in touch with my body for my feelings. It's a disconnect there. Mm-hmm. And when I do the breath work and now when I do the actual present moment, being in the now, some things come up, but they come up as episodes of my life. Like the last thing that came up for me was an episode from my childhood when my mother was yelling at me, and it was about money. And I had to release, I had to do so much work after that. And I cried like a baby. This is a couple of days ago. And then I had to call my spiritual mentor. I'm like, something happened here. I don't know why am I going this route, but God damn it, I was looking for some feelings and I ended up in my childhood.
Do you remember when I said that anything stressful that you push away will end up surfacing itself one way or another? The unconscious holds on to everything. A really interesting fun fact is, for example, deers. If a deer is being chased in a forest by an animal and they finally make it to a place of salvation, a safety area afterwards, a deer naturally will shake their whole body and they'll spend a period of time shaking their whole body to release the stress hormones like cortisol that have built up in the body. Humans, when we go through stressful moments, we don't do that. We carry that stress and it sits in our fascia. It's a layer underneath the skin that absorbs all the stress and it holds on to it until we consciously release it. And those memories that you had, for example, as a child, that stress that gets stored in the body, and your mind, your unconscious, like a program, like a computer, knows every single data point of all the things that have taken place and all the feelings attached to it and have held on to it in the body until you start to do work like this. And then you realize, oh, all these different memories are popping up and they're making me feel a certain way that I didn't know before. So when you start to release all that, then there's this lightness that comes through in the body.
Release all that. That's another lifetime. Probably every moment of my life is something there, right? For everything that I lived up until now, there must be something hiding to me personally.
There's always work to be done, for sure. I wouldn't want us to feel like down about the fact that it's endless, but certainly there is a lightness that we can feel more often than not if we are at least cleansing our day at the end of the day by doing the day scans, by doing the breath work, meditating, clearing in whatever way is good for us.
All right. So mentally, I understand that the feelings are getting stored into certain organs. Mentally understand that. Now, also mentally understand there's a flow between the brain, the heart, and the gut.
Yes.
So now, for me, and I would just generalize a little bit here, just for the hell of it. For men in general, we are thinking we are not feeling. I don't remember last time when somebody asked me, how you feeling, Silvius, today? The questions come in to me, what do you think about this, Silvius? It's a project, it's a car, it's whatever it is. It's the thinking mind that comes in play. So now I always thought my brain is the one that controls everything. And that's why I keep chugging those books behind me, because I want to give it more information and just overwhelm them with good shit instead of all this nonsense that I already had programmed already by myself, right? So now, which one is it that is the most important? Because I listened to a couple of books, and last one I think was written by a woman, but that doesn't mean anything. She was saying that our heart is the one that decides the ultimate truth for our feelings. The gut is asking for chemicals, it's sending the messages to the brain, but the heart itself has neurons or has a thinking mind of its own, and that's where everything happens. I have a little bit of hard time understanding that part. Like I don't quite understand between the three of them. I know that my head takes all the decisions, right? When I ask my body, what do you feel about this? I'm like, God damn, shut up. I'm like, you feel this, come on, shut up, man up. I chug up the feelings once again, push them down, hit them with a hammer, and then I decide with my thinking mind.
Yes. Okay. So to go full circle on everything you're saying, there's actually thinking, feeling, and sensing. So and depending on a person's character, they may actually choose to use different language anyways. There are certain people in the world that often they gravitate more towards asking you, what do you sense about that? Or how do you sense that experience? There are some people that would say, how do you feel about that? What did that experience make you feel? And then there'll be people that'll say, what did you think about that? And so that's often very unconscious language use. And so really, when we just become conscious of our language, then we can start integrating those three words into our vocabulary. And you may find that you'll actually get different responses from people because we're operating from a different space, the mind, the heart, and then of course the gut. As for information coming through or where's the most reliable, honestly, neuroscience research is still trying to figure all of this out, and information is moving through these three brains within milliseconds. So for me to say, oh, that thought or that feeling came from my heart first, or my gut first, or my head first, I don't know, and I'm not even necessarily certain that's the most important piece. I think the most important piece is to be conscious that there is some sort of information coming through you and that it wants to be acknowledged and recognized, because that's what's important. Now, if there's a feeling coming through, the next obvious best thing to do would be then to ask yourself with your thinking mind, what could that feeling be about? What do you believe it is? And you don't need to know the answer. You can theorize. You can sit with yourself. You can do as your friend said, sit outside, ground, let the thoughts come through, let ideas come through and see what presents itself.
My brain is bouncing now, meaning it's not connecting the right way. This is something that I recently heard. I'm not even sure if it was in a book, podcast, or something that I recently consumed, but they were saying something like this. If you are asking yourself what's the truth about a decision or something that's happening to you, if you ask your heart, you're going to get an instant, before you even finish the question, you're going to get an instant answer.
Sounds like intuition.
If you ask your mind, your thinking mind, your brain, what do you think about this? Then the brain has to connect with all the other centers, goes through the library, goes through the fucked up things that happened in the past, the things that it projects in the future, and the answer is going to come on somewhere in between. It's not going to be accurate, or it might be completely wrong. And you're using your thinking mind. Gut mind, the first time ever in my life when I hear it for the first time, it came from you just now. I don't think anybody ever up until now asked me, what are you sensing about this? I don't think anybody ever asked me that question. I don't even know how to answer that question. I don't think I have a sensory thing developed.
Yeah.
How do I feel with what? My body, like the energy we're talking about?
Yeah, what did you sense when we walked into that house the other day? Like, you could ask it like that, right? Because it's not a feeling. I don't want to know emotionally what you felt, and I don't want to know what you think. I want to know sensed something
You're
energetic.
looking at smells, you're looking at like the sensory things, like, because I don't know, my daughter is very developed with touching. She loves touching soft stuff and tissues and everything. She's like very sensory oriented. And I noticed that, and I can care less. I'm not, I don't even know what that is.
So you do, but you probably haven't given language to it. And I'll give you an example. Have you ever walked into either a conference or even had a conversation with someone you've met for the first time and you felt instantly really good or really bad?
Yeah, when I place judgment on people, I feel really bad. I feel like shit. When I don't, which I'm learning how to do that, I'm not putting any judgment. I feel really good. I feel really connected, deep connections with some people for the first time.
Okay. So I totally get what you're saying. Let's say that maybe it's not, you haven't even had a conversation with someone yet. There wasn't even room for judgment. You just maybe walked into, you seem to go to a lot of conferences and retreats and events, correct?
Yes.
Have there been some that you've gone to that you showed up and you're like you just feel energized and alive, and other ones you've shown up to and you're like, I don't know, this doesn't feel like it's mixing well with me?
Yeah, this is, I have the perfect explanation here. Tony Robbins event and Grant Cardone event. Tony Robbins is a holistic approach for everything, and Grant Cardone is about sales and plow through sales. So I felt a bad feeling when I walked into Grant Cardone's sales, but this was the third time doing it. So I'm not sure what caused the feeling. First time was excitement. I was happy. I was learning. So I do, but I don't. Again, my thinking mind comes in play and says, listen, it's, you decided to come here. You're not an idiot. You didn't spend the money for nothing. You're coming in because you're learning something. You're getting something out of it. So shut up, sit down, and disregard this feeling.
Okay, so this is where I would say there's something deeper that you're not necessarily acknowledging. And walking into that space, I don't know how I feel here, that doesn't mean you don't finish the event. That doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that you don't show up to every single talk that's given. That's not what it means. It just means listen to what you're sensing. There's something very intelligent about what you're sensing. So I'll say this, and I remember listening to this from a brilliant woman named Brene Brown, who
I've just read her book. I
she's
just literally today finished her book in the gym.
she's incredible. It's funny. That's funny timing, actually. She talked about intuition, and she said that she believes intuition really is just a series of a multitude of events and experiences and information and data and all these things collected together that we've experienced over the course of our life. But in a moment when we need to make a decision, our brain, our body, our intuition literally collects all of that information and spits something out to us and lets us know exactly in the most gentle of ways, because I think intuition is a gentle voice. It's not this intense sort of mental voice like you need to do this. It's more of that gentle voice that says, based on all this collection of experience and data, this is what feels most aligned for you. And so if we can tune into that sense, into that feeling in a moment, then you'll start listening better. And so what do I mean by this? Maybe you would go to that event. Who was it that you said you went to?
It was a Grant Cardone event, a 10x commercial real estate event.
So maybe in a moment like that, I would probably pause before I sat down anywhere, and I would just say, okay, what's going on here? Is it the space? Is it where I am in the room? Is it this particular time? Is it the talk? What is it that I need to do next? And sometimes it's as simple as, okay, go left, go right, sit over there, sit in that seat. I'm just literally listening to very subtle messages. And then I find myself in situations beside people that absolutely changed the whole experience for me, and something on a deeper intuitive level knew that I needed to be there. So I think this is a muscle. This is not just something you have or you don't have. You train this muscle. Like anything else we do, we train it by listening in and playing with it and testing things more and more throughout our days until we start noticing, okay, things are lining up. Things are not just like a coincidence anymore, but that's because you're tuning into that sense. And that doesn't mean you throw away rational mind, because I'm very much on the rational side. Everything I do needs to be backed by neuroscience. So that's my like holistic medical background coming through. That's tell me exactly what it is, because I need to know.
So you're watching a lot of Gaia channels, right?
I should maybe be more, but more books. I'm like you are, Silvius. I do more of the book reading thing. And then doctors, I listen to a lot of my favorite doctors, Brene Brown, Dr. Joe Dispenza being a few of them. And
Kelly
understanding
Flanagan, Dr. Kelly.
Dr. Kelly.
Kelly Flanagan, I think. Dr.
Oh,
Kelly. Lovable. You wrote a book.
say it again.
Dr. Kelly Flanagan, I think, and Lovable is the name of the book, I believe.
Oh, yes. I have read that book.
Yeah.
Didn't know that was her name, though. Isn't that funny?
Literally, Dr. Kelly is a guy, and I literally just got off the call with him right a minute before I jumped to the call with you.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I had an hour call again through the Front Row Dads. Just, I want to pause for 1 second here. I want to give the readers the opportunity to take down the name of the book that we're talking about. I finished reading Daring Greatly. That's the name of the book by Brené Brown. That's her name. Yeah. She goes very deep into multiple levels. I don't think we have time to explain and talk about it. It talks about shame. I think that's the most important thing that comes out, what the effects of shame are through our life, especially in our kids, and then us growing up, and how it shapes our behavior and everything else, and pretty much what we should do with our kids and how we can improve, work with it. And there are multiple aspects of it, like you pointed out. But yes, that's one of the books that totally changes the way we look at things when it comes down to relationships. And we're being shamed pretty much on daily basis. We're bringing those feelings up. Yeah, I noticed that. I think the best, and this is my wife, I'm her supporter, she's my supporter, but I think she does this to perfection. She knows exactly where my pain points are, and she points a needle right in it. Every time she needs that reaction, she knows she's going to get it, and she's going to shame me with it every time. And it's very small things at a time, but they're usually very perfectly chosen for that particular moment.
So it's really interesting you say this. And I think this is why, for me, it's so important and why I teach emotional intelligence more than anything. Combined emotional intelligence, communication skills go hand in hand to be able to connect deeper. And it's so important to be aware of ourselves when we're having conversations, especially with our significant other, because they're often very vulnerable conversations. And if I'm going to throw something in your face, you're going to shut down. You're either going to shut down or you're going to react. And that is not us connecting. That's creating more disconnection. But I need to be aware of myself first. And this is why I continue to teach this. Are you emotionally aware? And do you know how to emotionally manage yourself? That way you can then express that through your communication with your partner in a way that, rather than them feeling shame, they can actually feel like you understand them, you hear them, you see them. That doesn't mean condoning behavior necessarily. It just means creating a sense of understanding so a trajectory can be changed so it works for both of you.
Let me give you a quick example, because something came up just now when you said that. So I'm having a friendly conversation with my wife, and all of a sudden she brings up a joke from her childhood, a joke from Romania that I used to laugh or understand at the time. It was nothing pretty much. It was just an innocent joke, right? And it bothered me so much. So I had an adverse reaction towards that joke. And for the first time ever, based on the books that I've read, and I felt like I got a bit of support now, I've decided to be more vulnerable and express. And I said, listen, that joke really bothered me. I think it was inappropriate for the level of development that we're in right now. And can you please not do it again? And when I got back, I was expecting a lot of support. I was expecting a hug or a kiss or something like that. And when I got back, she turned around to me and she said, it looks like I've touched something else that you know about and it bothers you, but it has nothing to do with me. So I felt ashamed that I voiced it out. I felt so much shame. I'm like, next time, don't even bother saying crap like this. So this is when I'm overstepping my boundaries and I'm working on my issues, and I'm trying to be vulnerable and to be genuine towards my significant other so we can resolve our differences.
Yes.
And here I am, this is what I'm getting back, and it was just a reaction. We talked about it, we finally worked it through in a deeper level, but this is what I got back. So this ties in with the question is, when men decide to become vulnerable, right? And we finally get an open window, an opportunity to do so with our significant other, I feel we're getting shut down and we're getting put down to the wall. And then is this demand from the women that we men have to be the solution-based guys that we always are, right? We have to figure it out. We're moving. You didn't know that? I'm like, yeah, I knew, but I have problems. This lease is not coming in. You already knew all these details. Haven't you figured out yet? So I'm like, God damn it, you asking me to be in advance in places that I never been and get shit done without telling you, just to live up to the expectations. So I feel the pressure so much sometimes that I start walking. Like I get out of the house, I'm like, get out and walk and come back when you feel like you can talk again.
Okay. There's two things I want to say to what you said, and hopefully I'll recall all of it. So one, our triggers are our biggest learning points. So at any point in time, if you are being triggered by any human being, that is an opportunity for you to actually go deeper inwards in yourself and see what is it that's causing me to be triggered. And I'll give you a very
good one. I got to take a note.
So a very basic example. If, for example, you see yourself as an excellent leader who's doing very well in his job and makes great money, and you're really proud of yourself and feeling secure in your role, and somebody comes along and says, you're a shit leader, you're worth nothing, you have no money. If you feel secure within yourself in that role, that comment is going to fly by. But if you've had doubts in the last weeks or months or years about whether you're really stepping into your full potential, and whether you really are a successful man, and whether you really are holding it down for the family. If you're having doubts in yourself, if you're having insecurity, and somebody comes along and like pokes at that, that's going to create a trigger. And those triggers are areas for you to look at yourself and say, why do I feel I'm not successful? Why do I feel I'm not good enough? Why do I feel I'm not holding it down? What does that look like? What actions can I take? So they're actually excellent learning points for ourselves to recognize where our own insecurities, our own doubts and shame about ourselves that I can actually work to improve. The second piece to all of this, how old were you when you met your wife?
I was 37.
Okay. How old are you now?
I'm 43.
Are you the same man as when you were 37?
I'm lying. I married her at 37. We had kids at 37. No, we met at 28. I was 28. I know her for a long time now.
Are you the same man as you were at 28?
No, obviously every single cell changes every 7 years. I'm definitely not. But now let me ask you this. If everything changes, why not the feelings and emotions? Why do they still stay there? Because everything changes. Every single cell in our body, like the liver changes, goddammit. Why I still have liver pain?
I don't think feelings and emotions stay the same either, though. Exactly. That's what I said to you. I think even love changes. We can call it love, but I think even the depth of love, the degree of love, how you define that love. I
want to get into that because that was one of my main areas of focus, like love. And I want to get there.
So we'll transition into it, but to close the loop, as we say in hypnotherapy terms, you're not the same person when you chose her. In other words, your 28-year-old self probably knew nothing about emotional intelligence.
Oh, hell no. I still don't know shit.
We're always learning, we're growing. And I'm certain that you picked a person who was more in alignment with you at that point in time. It worked. So unless she takes the same growth trajectory with you and moves along that path of growth with you, she's not going to be approaching conversations the same way you are, which means if you're coming to her deciding all of a sudden to be this vulnerable man, she may have no idea how to respond.
She has no clue that I read the book Brené Brown wrote.
And that might be an excellent book for her to read. And I often suggest for couples to actually read books together or read it at the same pace. That way they can talk about it with each other and go through it together. So you have the same base of information. That way, when after all these years you've been together, you're not just throwing out vulnerability and then hoping she suddenly seems to understand how to respond to it.
Oh, she smacked the hell out of me. I did not give her this book. And it's my fault because this is exactly what I did with the two books that I was recommending before the show. I forget the name of them. One is Understanding Women and the second one is The Amazing Development of Men by Alice Armstrong. So I recommend these two books. And this is exactly what we did. While I was flying to an event in the airplane, I was listening to the book, and I asked her to do the same thing in the same time. And then the next day we talked about it, we discussed. And then the second book, we did the same thing. In a span of 4 days, we went to both books and we discussed about it. Now, I love what you said about the development. And this is one of the issues that, again, I want to address here, because there's a way. There's definitely a way. The development of individuals is totally different. It has different timing, it happens it's best not to be even be recommended to the other one, because we all develop ourselves on our own pace. So I'll give an example, and this is intuitive here in my example. My wife is studying Joe Dispenza.
Okay.
She's a lot more developed than I am when it comes down to feelings, and she does the work. She does the meditations every day. If I listen to Joe Dispenza, it's like you hit me with a rock. I can barely understand half of what he's saying. And when I was trying to sit into one of his meditations, I was snapping out of it like there's no tomorrow. I was running away. My brain didn't want to comprehend. So I'm immature when it comes down to Joe Dispenza. Although I've read his books 2016 to begin with, I know about frequency, I know about tuning, I understand it. Again, with my thinking mind, I understand my body does not get a shit out of it yet. I developed myself in a different direction. I picked up a lot more business books, real estate, how to build an empire, how to buy this, how to be a millionaire by this, how to do the strategy. So I got it infested with this think big bullshit that everybody's promoting out there. You got to think bigger and bigger. Like you got to be a billionaire in order to make $1 million. Up until people forget they live in land. They forget that they're still living with rent and the car payment is due, and they spend the last credit card on the new course that came up, but they're behind the rent. So I'm working with bringing people together through personal development by giving them this podcast. This is the beginning, guys. If anybody listens to this, please go deeper. And now I would like you to just do a call of action, like we call it. Do you have a website? Where can people find you? This is a very important point right here.
Certainly. GiovannaElias.com, GiovannaElias.com. People can find me. You can also find me on Facebook, Giovanna Elias. Same on Instagram, giovanna.fjm.elias. And reach out to me. I love to do 30-minute connection calls. And so I just connect with people and get a feel for where they're at, what they may need. And that can look like your romantic relationship life, and that can also look like the relationship with your kids, meeting people, how it shows up your relationships in business, the whole spectrum of really communicating and connecting in any of your relationships. So it would be an absolute pleasure for you to just reach out, have a chat, and I always love to connect.
Yeah, that would be great. Please send me when you can. I know you send me your bio, but I would like to have all these handles so I can add them to the description of the podcast in case people want to reach you. They don't need to go to the specific minute to find out these information. They're going to be back there on the bottom of the podcast on the description. Yeah. So use this as the beginning journey. That's what I was about to say. Use this as the beginning journey. It might be an eye opener for a few, for the more developed individuals. Might be something deeper to look into it, and help is always available from you. And I thank you for that. Now, what bothers me is that I meet a lot of people that get divorced. And by 43, and I'm 43, by 44, half of my friends are already divorced. They got kids. They thought they had meaningful relationships, then they dissipated along the years. And now I want to be the Robin Hood of these relationships. I want to be the Robin Hood of the people that are coming in so close for so long, and all of a sudden they part ways just because they don't have the right tools. And this was the reason why I started this podcast. I wanted to breach the relationships, or at least give some tools. I don't have the tools. They work for me. I have no idea if it's going to work for anybody else. But at least some tools that are free, available. Some people don't have the money. They don't want to get into a private call because no, he's gonna start taking me through all these issues that I have, because I have issues in my relationship with my wife. Then I have issues at work. Then I have issues with my entrepreneurship. Then I have self-esteem issues, and that's why I bring you in. And I want, for people that are looking for more, please go ahead and dig into it. For people that are at the beginning journey of it, I think books are already available, right? YouTube stuff, it's out there. You can find stuff. Now is an overwhelm of information and books on the topics. It looks like ChatGPT can write a book in 3 minutes now.
Yeah.
So,
It's a little scary now because you're getting robot books instead of humanly.
yeah, now podcasts are getting done, and there's so many things going on at the spectrum in this world of marketing, right? And digital artificial intelligence, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But the human relationships, I think there's one of the points that I think Elon Musk was making at one point in one podcast that I watched, that this is something the artificial intelligence won't be able to change. This
100%.
is something that we are working on. We got to be better than the artificial intelligence on all levels, and this is one of the points that we have on top of them. They can do a lot of things. They will be. It's based on input and output. But it comes out. But when it comes down to relationships and how do we handle these emotions and everything else, we should be the masters and commanders of this ship, as long as we're here on Earth.
Certainly. And I want you to finish your thought because there was something.
Yeah, no, I'll stop it right here. I want to get more out of you than what I have to say about it, because you're the expert in the room. I'm just an ant.
Just so that people don't feel overwhelmed, let's say, I really want to shed light on the fact that while we do operate in a world where everything is a relationship, from work to family to friendships to meeting new people to romantically, all of those relationships boil down to the one that we have with ourselves. And so that people don't feel like, oh, I'm overwhelmed because I've got a problem with work and I've got a problem with family and I've got a problem romantically and I have problems networking and all of these issues. It's really extremely simple. And this is actually why I created my 9-key system called the connection code, because these 9 particular keys are applicable to all relationships, of course, starting with the one within ourselves. And so when we understand ourselves and we apply these keys to ourselves, then that just shows up in how we communicate and operate with other people, how we connect with other people. So it's not so much of, oh, I have to master this and that. It's more, let me understand self, and how does that then show up in every single area of my life?
That's so nicely said. And with that, I'm just going to say it one more time that I need to do some work. And it starts inward. More than anything else, it looks like, again, I'm putting it out there for men. We are looking on the outside more than we're looking on the inside. And this is probably the reason why Rome fell. This is probably one of the reasons why we become we. I'm just saying, a lot of individuals get up there. They're very rich, fulfilled financially and this and that, but they're so broke when it comes down to feelings and emotions and how to handle them. Into stepping the ladder now, and I want to bring it up to, this is something that happened to me recently. Real estate investor, started with one house, then moved to 2, 3, 4, then moved into, I want to make millions and I want to be there with the millionaires. Then I met a couple billionaires. So I start networking on the highest spectrum of people. So what I noticed here, and being a good student, this is what I think is the key here. I realized that these guys are well above my pay rate when it comes down to their feelings and their emotions and the way, even the way they handle the situations. When they come in a room, I feel the aura, like I feel like somebody enter here and it's important. They don't have to say a word. The most times I'm pulling teeth. I'm trying to get information out of them, and they're so used to it. And I feel it, and then I'm like, okay, this guy, you already did the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I did the work, man.
Sensing their presence.
Yeah, and then I hear the speaker says, oh, so he made over $100 million in the past 3 months. I'm like, God damn it. How is it possible that all these men, they are reaching these stages of wealth and everybody's looking, they did the work first, man. So I just looking on the inside. But now, let's say people don't know you and they never heard about this podcast and they just want to start their journey like I am. I picked up hypnosis because I thought that's going to help me. And it does to a point in my subconscious brain. I know how to access that part, right? But that's still a thought provoked, mechanical. I don't go to the feelings there. I go there for my thinking mind. I can tell my subconscious brain what to do and how to do in certain circumstances and how to handle myself in certain things, but I don't control the feelings that come in and out. So I'm an undeveloped individual today, and I show up in front of you and I need help, and I don't want to take 6 month sessions with you, but I want to go through the stages or the steps, the 9 steps that you have in place. Can you name it for us? I don't want you to give it away if you don't. It's part of the course and it's part of the program that you're selling. But I'm asking this because I'm undeveloped and I really want to know, like, how do I even start this inside communication? Is it through meditation? Is it through books for Joe Dispenza? I think he's way up there on the shelf. What would be a 101?
Okay, so I'll start by just saying the first key is curiosity. And curiosity really looks like getting curious first within ourselves about what is going on. And of course, then getting curious about other people when that extends outwards to our relationships. So if we're even going based on that first step, it's saying, okay, I want to understand X. Of course, every person is going to be different. What is their end objective at the end of all of it? So you can get curious about what X would be. So let's talk in your case, rather than being so vague. What would be something that you actually feel is really important for you to work on next, Silvius?
First one would be a deep dive within myself. I got to find, where the hell do I keep my feelings hidden? I feel like they're in the box. I had a key, I locked it, and I threw the key away. Now I'm looking for my key.
Let's understand the end though. What's the outcome you want? So if you understand your feelings, what is the end result that you want from understanding your feelings?
Oh, this guy's going to be a better man. If
Okay.
I know my feelings,
How would you be a better man? In what way?
oh, I'll be a better man in all perspective. I would be able to help other people like me to begin with. I would be able to give them maybe the steps or a roadmap of how do I got to my feelings. I would be able to be a better man in terms of business, understanding people based on their feelings and reactions instead of their thoughts. Because like I said, right now I'm judging everybody based on their thoughts. I don't know any better. I stopped judging them based on the clothes, although my brain still does that in the first minute. Then the formal appearance, then the first words that they're saying. So I came over those things. It would make me a better father.
Okay.
Understanding my feelings would make me a better father, because sometimes I'm infuriating, yelling at my kids, and then I'm ashamed that I did that. I'm like, who does that? What kind of father am I? Where this goddamn emotion came out, yelling and screaming while I was on Facebook? I had no reasonable explanation why I jumped on my kid's throat.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to make me a better father, a better husband. If I understand my feelings, I'm going to understand my wife better, and I'm going to be able to express the loving, compassionate husband that I am.
Okay.
I know my feelings are there, and like I said, feelings to me are usually words, not words. It's one word proposition. That's what a feeling is for me. But one word proposition, when I'm describing my feelings, I'm like love. Okay, love is the huge spectrum of love, like you said. Or fear, where fear comes out in my life ever since I was born.
Yeah.
Now I want to pinpoint it.
Okay.
So this is my initial assessment.
So, and just a little side note, when you mentioned pinpointing, there's actually a beautiful thing called the emotions wheel, and that actually shows you the principal emotions that we experience, and then within those principal emotions, it actually expands outwards and shows you more specific, detailed emotions that cater to each principal emotion. So even in a moment when you're frustrated, having that wheel accessible to you so that you can even ask yourself, like, okay, this is not quite anger, maybe it's frustration, actually maybe it's disappointment. So it's really going like layers deeper into what that feeling is. With all that being said, you mentioned wanting to be a great businessman, a great father, a great husband, among many other things. We would then go one layer deeper. What does that actually look like? What does that mean? So if you were a great husband, how does that actually show up? Is that quality time with your wife? Is that active listening? Is that being more intentional with the time that you do have together? Is that doing certain activities together that you haven't accomplished that you wanted to do? Is it working on a project? Is it getting to know this new version of your wife? Is it asking her about how her Dr. Joe Dispenza courses are going and learning from her? There's so many different elements of what that means, and then you know what steps to take. And the same with being a good father. What does being a good father mean? Once again, is it quality time? Is it being intentional with the time you spend with your girls? Is it not being reactive, but rather asking quality questions and learning what's really going on underneath them? Is it reading books about hormonal shifts in women so you can understand them better? It's like there's so many different layers to what it actually means to be a good businessman, father, husband, all of these different things. So understanding then what that actually looks like, how that shows up in the physical world according to you. Because if you don't really know what that means in a physical reality, you sure as hell are not going to create it.
Oh no, I bet this is my first time when I hear about the wheel though.
Okay, the wheel is excellent. And so oftentimes so I'll say this, for example, anger is a secondary emotion. So oftentimes men will experience anger in a situation and they're fueled and they get explosive and they don't know where that comes from. And I would say more often than not, it is often shame. It is often a hurt or a sadness or a disappointment that has led them to now explode in a form of anger. And so if in a moment where all of that feeling is bubbling up, if you had skills, let's say breathing, 4 breaths in, 8 breaths out, this is actually releasing more CO2 from the body and it's relaxing the body. Do that 10 times before you explode on someone. And now you ask yourself, okay, where is this anger actually coming from? Am I disappointed? Am I hurt? Do I wish she actually responded in this way or did this for me instead? What's the trigger here? Is this on my end? Is it hers? Is it both of us? It's often both anyways, it takes 2 to tango. But that's the piece. That's the emotional intelligence piece. It's learning how to emotionally manage yourself so you can do it in a moment when you recognize the feeling in the body, you do a little breathing. And then it's the emotional awareness piece of, oh, maybe I'm not actually angry. Maybe I'm really freaking hurt. Maybe I'm really disappointed. Or maybe that thing that she keeps doing frustrates me because it actually hurts me or it offends me or whatever it is. And so now having that awareness, now you can bring that to your partner and you can communicate that. Or to whoever it is. This could be in the office too, right? Colleagues, whoever we're dealing with as well, or to your kids. I love books. Don't get me wrong. I think books are excellent. I love podcasts. I also think they're excellent. I think having a coach is that integral piece. So it's literally someone saying, let me lead you because I see what you can't see in yourself. There's blind spots. We all have blind spots. This is the nature of the beast. It's great that we are constantly leveling up our awareness. And I think for someone to just look at us and say X, Y, and Z, let's do these certain exercises, it just streamlines the process. I think it makes the process a lot faster. It makes it smoother. It makes it more efficient. I think you can do a lot less. For example, my 9-key system, I do it in 3 months. I think investing 3 months versus years of reading books goes a long way. That doesn't mean you don't keep reading books, by the way. And that doesn't mean you don't keep going to seminars and podcasts and doing everything. It all adds to our plethora of awareness. I just think there's a very quick, streamlined way of getting somewhere, assuming you actually want change because you're in a place of discomfort.
Yeah, absolutely. So this ties in with the elevator structure that I have. Like, you better off taking the elevator having a mentor. Pretty much that's how I see it. You can walk the steps by adding books and seminars and webinars and all this stuff, but you can take the elevator, get there. Now, sometimes I agree with it, sometimes I don't agree with it, because sometimes the development, it's the journey, right? So some people need to take it very slow to figure out. It took me 6-7 years to get to the point where I'm asking myself if I'm aware enough of my surroundings, if I'm aware of my emotions, which I know I'm not now. And one of the most important things that comes to me is that I snap, and I'm not a temperamental guy. I think I'm a calm dad, but I snap and then I ask myself after, what was that? Like, I don't ask myself beforehand. Oh, and I noticed another one. This is a really good one. After I have a beer or two, if I do, and I do sometimes, I find myself in conflict a lot easier.
Yeah.
God damn it, how did I end up here? Because without the beer, I couldn't even open the subject.
Okay. So
So
it helps you open the subject, but it doesn't end well.
no, never. To the point where I'm like, I'm not even touching a beer today because I don't want to end up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, can have that effect on people. It also depends what alcohol you're drinking, how
I'm
much.
just a beer guy, and it's one of my escape of realities. I do work on it, like trying to leave it behind. I give up coffee. I give up a lot of things lately, and I'm doing a lot of watering. So on the health spectrum, I am a holistic guy. I'm keeping everything in the holistic space. But with my thoughts, man, I still have, is it a thought? Is it a feeling? Is it a sensation? I'm somewhere, I don't even know the difference very well.
It's all of the above. They're all happening. So the thought produces the feeling, and the body produces the sense, right? Like sometimes our hair, like the hair on our skin goes up. That's like our body sensing something, which could have came from a feeling, which came from a thought, or came from a thought, which generated a feeling. This is what I mean by all of it's taking place at the same time. So you may have had a very like subtle, slipped right under the rug thought that you weren't even aware of, and suddenly you're feeling frustrated or angry or explosive, and you're like, where did that come from?
Yeah, who's that? Who's that guy?
Yeah, but that came from a thought. Something had to produce that feeling, otherwise you wouldn't be having that feeling.
So you're saying to me in other words that I should be in La La Land all day and pump myself with affirmations like you're the best, you're the happiest dad ever, and
Oh,
I'm gonna be walking
oh.
around and dancing with myself all day. That's the only way I can see myself doing that.
I actually love that you said this, Silvius, because I really have a strong aversion to the word positive. I don't believe it's about being positive human beings. I believe it's the journey we go on should be about becoming conscious human beings. Because positive is to assume that the negative feelings are negative. I don't think they're necessarily negative. They are a part of the spectrum of what makes a human. And to understand the negative also helps us shed light on what's going on, what are our triggers, so that we can work through it to have more positive experiences. So if we didn't have that, we wouldn't also recognize the other side of things. And that requires consciousness. I don't say to people, walk around having positive thoughts all day. I say, walk around being aware of your thoughts, because that awareness is going to help you. Once again, the day scans, it's going to help you recognize, what do I repeat more because it makes me feel good? What do I not repeat? Or what do I need to recognize in this that might need to be changed? And is it on
Chocolate.
my, say it again?
Chocolate, I said.
I'm a full believer of 100% pure chocolate with honey.
It's an addiction. No, I don't have it, but I just thought out that I wanted to break a little bit away from. I feel like you are understanding me and you're pinpointing exactly the things that I go through. And
Thank you.
the data is there. The data is there for it. The studies show the holistic way of thinking. And I believe the truth and the lie, the dark side and the white side, they just make us men. They just make us people. They just make us human. Because you cannot live into a state of affirmation all the time without having the negative part. It's the counterbalance of the good things and the bad things that happen. Somebody asked me, we had this conversation. I'm going to bring it to a point where it's very weird, but I'm going to put it out there, and it's just to underline a point. I was talking about Hitler.
Okay.
And the conversation went, and I was the only one in the room who said Hitler was actually a good person.
Okay.
And people looked at me and was like, what do you mean? You know what happened? And I'm like, historically, I know what happened, but you also know that he represented over 80 million people at the time.
Okay.
So I'm like, how do you justify that? He was a villain for the rest of the world, but for 80 million people, he was a god. So he was a counterbalance in good and bad in the same time. So I was like, what if we're looking at, the conversation was going on hypnosis class, the conversation was going, what if we're looking at the truth of also being not true?
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many pieces you said here. So then this is a lot of philosophy, right? What is good versus bad? And even speaking to the word truth, we all walk around with our own filters on, our own rosy tinted glasses of the world, however they look. Yours might be green, mine are yellow, someone else's are pink.
Oh, I got multiple layers though.
And that too, in every environment can bring on a new filter. And my truth is going to look different than your truth to somebody else's truth. And you're very much correct that for 80,000 million, how many people was it?
80 million, yeah. Germany, the population was 80 million, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's insane. Okay, so for 80 million people, he represented, let's say, one filter of what is true and what, according to them, let's say, was good or necessary. I will say this to go one layer deeper as to what I personally believe is good. I would say, so long as we are not hurting somebody else, and now, of course, then we can go into what does hurt mean and how does that show up. But so long as we are not intentionally hurting someone, so in law terms, mens rea, actus reus, it's do I have the intention and then do I go act on it? I'm sidetracking, but I'll bring us full circle. What makes someone guilty? Someone becomes guilty when they had the intention, the thought, and that thought then became an action and it hurts someone. So if I take somebody's life because I had the thought, I planned it out intentionally, and then I took someone's life, then that would make me guilty. That makes me bad, let's say. Now, but then we can talk about what was that TV show with the murderer that actually killed other murderers?
Dexter, yeah.
Dexter?
No,
It was, some people might know this. It was a series. It was a murderer, but this man murdered other murderers. So you could actually say he was a vigilante. He was doing well. He was getting rid of all the other bad guys in the world. So that's arguably good. So once again, everybody has a totally different perspective on life. And I don't think any relationship should be about making someone right or wrong. I think every relationship should be about understanding why people do what they do. And when we start getting curious, first key, when we start getting curious and asking questions, not from a place of judgment, not from a place of you did something wrong, but rather from a let me just understand why you even did what you did. What went through your mind? What were you emotionally feeling that led you to actually take an action that hurt me or that hurt somebody else in the process? And I think that at least builds a greater sense of understanding. And to finally wrap this whole piece up, there was an excellent book called The Banality of Evil. And this was a book on Eichmann. He was a part of the SS in World War II. This is part of what I studied when I studied human rights law. And he was interviewed. It was a journalist that had written a memoir of his whole interview process post World War II. And this man, literally his role was to send Jews and other minorities to the camps. He was the middle guy. He was the catalyst to make that happen. He never physically saw the people, nor did he ever see them going to the camps and dying. He was just in the middle coordinating. When he was tried in court, when they asked him what led you to do what you did, he said, I was just a cog in the wheel. I was just doing my job. That was my orders. I was just doing my job. So no sense of empathy, no sense of remorse, no sense of even understanding that what he did contributed to the death of multiple people. And to even have an understanding that he had no awareness, I think in and of itself, it's fascinating, but it's in some sense healing because you stop judging the person and saying, oh, they must have been the most evil person possible to take all these lives. Instead, it's, wow, he really, from his filter, believed that what he was doing was contributing to at least his job. And he thought his job was very important and meaningful. So I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying having an understanding gives us a little bit more of a grander perspective as to what leads people to do what they do. And perhaps it leads us to forgive them.
I guess that's the key right there. Forgiveness. It's one of the things, but I'm not ask you this. How do I make my reality one and the same my wife's reality? Because I feel like we're bumping heads every time I go back and I'm invoking a fact from the past. It looks like mine is altered in a totally different way than what her fact or reality is. So is it something that we should just leave alone? Do not open that Pandora box?
Oh, no, you should open Pandora's box, but Pandora's box with emotional intelligence. So an emotional management, calmness can look not like a shit show, pardon my French. So in a moment where, let's say, you're feeling triggered, depending on the degree of that trigger, whether you can manage yourself emotionally and come to a place of peace, or whether you might need to walk away, go for a nice walk in nature, ground, do some breath work, and then come back. In that moment, when you recognize that there's maybe a disconnection or a disalignment of beliefs and practices, that's when you would then ask your wife calmly, what led you to do that, or to think this way, or what was your thinking behind that, or maybe even flip it and say, how would you have liked me to respond to that? What do you think would have been an accurate or a fruitful response, or a response that would have led to us connecting deeper? How would you have liked to see that show up? Because oftentimes people will get reactive and disappointed, but they don't actually know what they want of you. So to ask them and to build understanding of where they're coming from, and then to also ask for permission to share. Do you mind if I share my perspective? Are you open to listening? You want the yes, right? And then you
Yeah, I
want
don't think I'm doing that.
huh?
Yeah, I don't think I'm asking for that permission. I feel like in between me and her, I just go ahead and do it. We earn this level of trust. But you're right, I should be asking for it. And I did the exact same thing that you're saying I did. I went to the gym early in the morning. I woke up very early, 3:30. She noticed that I wasn't in bed overnight. She woke up. I went to the gym. I came back at 8-ish. Kids were eating breakfast, and I minded my own business. I was in the perfect shape, in the perfect mentally spot. My day was already done, finished before 8 a.m. I was excited to go on with my day. And she said, "Oh, I feel such a bad vibe coming off of you." I'm like, shit, it hit me like a brick in my head. I'm like, no, this is the best shape that I've been. Like, I'm present, I'm aware, I'm here. I'm like, I was so excited and happy to be there. So I'm like, I can't confront her because obviously she's going through something else. Let me postpone and do this tomorrow. So I held it for a whole day.
I was going to say, just ask her in the moment. What makes you feel this negative energy? Anyways, continue with your story.
I waited for a day. I'm like, let's clear the air. Let's see what's going on. We'll come back to it tomorrow. So tomorrow I came back to it and I'm like, I did not ask for permission. Maybe the timing was bad. And I'm like, you were saying about this thing. She says, yeah, I feel a bad vibe. I'm like, you still feel that? This is the second day now. And again, I'm in the best shape, best intentions, no bad thoughts. I did some work for myself. And she says, yeah. And then I sat down and I got a little bit pissed. I'm like, can you please check your feelings and shake them a little bit? Because they're not how I feel.
Okay.
Like, can you like face the reality that this is not what I feel? Really, look at me. I'm happy.
Yeah. So this would be now your role is to inquire with her. So rather than making her wrong for feeling or sensing what she has, you now ask her, what do you think is leading you to feel this way? Did you notice it when you woke up? Did you notice it before you went to bed? Did you notice it when I came back from the gym? What do you think this bad feeling is? What makes it bad? Can you describe it a bit better for me? Now you're actually getting her to reflect on her thoughts because maybe she didn't even do that herself. So it could be a very subtle underlying thing like, oh, my husband's doing so well and I'm not even taking care of myself. Or, oh, my husband gets to go to the gym and I have to clean and cook and get ready, take the kids to get ready. Maybe it has nothing to do with that. And maybe she doesn't know what it is either. And it could be a very fading thought. But to ask questions starts to get her to generate that awareness in herself about where those feelings are coming from.
Yes, you're right. And you hit it right on the spot, man. So the way of asking those questions are not like implying that you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
I'm like, check your feelings, throw them in the garbage, and by tomorrow morning, make sure you don't have them because I feel great. I think that's what it came out of my mouth.
That's you shutting your wife down to what she's feeling.
I'm like, if you feel bad for me for 2 days and I'm in the perfect shape, I didn't do nothing wrong. I'm like, can you change the vibration? She said, the vibration around you is, I'm like, it might have been the frustration that she woke up in the middle of the night and I wasn't there. Maybe.
Yeah. Could be.
In the subconscious, sleep time, it happened. Yeah, the multiple choices. The point is, I don't think I have the level of confidence to bring that conversation that way. I think I'm still, the way you said it, the way I should go about it and questioning it in a way that you make her introspect, look into herself, I think I demand that. I think I'm like, I come in too strong and I'm like, how about you check yourself?
So once again, so now this is you making yourself wrong. So on some level, you're taking her words and taking it personally. And by you taking it personally, it's creating a reaction rather than a curious response. So rather than being reactive and assuming that what she's saying is a direct jab at you, it's not
Oh
personal.
yeah, that's what I felt.
Yeah, most of the time we get triggered because we take things personally. And rather than in that moment saying, actually, maybe this is not personal, maybe I should get curious about what it is about. Give her the full benefit of the doubt before you have any sort of reaction to it. So understand where she's coming from. You actually want to be curious, always.
Yeah, so I stopped at first pillar, and I thank you so much for your time. I'm looking at the clock. We went overboard with this, but I enjoy so much the conversation that maybe we should do it again some other time. Yes, it's always a pleasure speaking to you, and your advice is priceless. You're empowering. I didn't go deep in it as far as I know with my relationship, because this is my beginning journey, I would say. I'm at the curiosity level when I'm curious about myself and I'm curious about how do I feel about the world in general. And I already start uncovering some, like I said, some facts that are completely disturbed based on the filters that I used up until now. And now I remove some of the filters and the reality looks completely different. And my major shift here is I want to be on the same plane with my wife. This is my goal. If I'm not going to be able to do this, I feel like I'm not accomplished. I feel like my relationship is not meaningful enough. I don't feel like I'm going to have a successful life if I'm not going to be able to put me and her on the same page. And
Yes. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
no, go ahead.
Speaking to the same page and really just looping back to what you said, even about Dr. Joe Dispenza, and you couldn't really vibe with it and all those things. If something of that nature happens where you really want to be on the same page with your partner, but maybe what they're learning or doing is not necessarily what you would want to give the same hours to, then I would at least spend quality intentional time, even if it's just dinner time, asking your wife, what does she learn throughout her day? Because while you may not need to go read a whole book on Dr. Joe Dispenza, you can certainly ask her major takeaways. That's going to help her reinforce her own learnings. And it's going to show you what she took away from it. And that way you can be on the same page, more or less on the same page, at least in terms of her major takeaways.
I'll give away a couple of tricks that I've been using. My brotherhood, the people, the boys that I hang up with, the circle of friends that I have, they got me into learning more and putting myself on the same page with my wife because they asked me the right questions. And I did that. I came home and I said, can I have the user and password for this course that you're taking from Dr. Joe Dispenza because I want to start it. And it was like I felt that I need to do that in order to connect with her on a deeper level. And the answer came in and then it just put me down. She said, don't you have enough on your plate right now to take another course in? And I'm like,
Okay.
God damn it. Like, she's my conscience, man. I'm like, God damn it. I have so many things that I've started, so many projects that I'm working on that this would be like above my pay grade, right?
Sure. And a beautiful response to that is, I want to connect with you and I feel this is the way I can do it. You might be right. It might be me taking more on my plate. So is this a way that you feel would be most effective for us to connect? Or is there another way that I can understand your own personal growth and we can connect?
I wish I had this conversation with before I had the conversation with her because I didn't say anything. I just walked away. I'm like, you're right. You're probably right. That's
You
what I
can
said.
revisit
So
that conversation.
no, we're going to repeat the conversation because I want to be on the same page, but I just didn't have my words with me. Let's put it that way.
And underneath that, so any criticism underneath a criticism is also an ask from your partner. So she might be saying to you, don't you think you have enough on your plate? In other words, I want to spend more time with you. I want you to spend more time with the girls. I want us to have more quality time. You taking on another course might take away from us. So she's not directly telling you, but there's a need, there's a desire, there's something more important for her underneath that comment. And that might be her actually just wanting to spend more time with her husband. So while you're trying to connect and she's trying to connect, both of you are not directly saying we just want to connect with each other. and you're doing it in your way and she's doing it in her way, rather than saying, hey babe, I would love for us to connect in this way, or you asking, hey babe, what do you feel is the best way for us to connect? Is it through Joe Dispenza? Is it through another way?
Yeah, I think the key is more open conversations when it comes down to these taboo subjects that men usually have or don't have. And I think the lack of, it's more troubling than actually having the conversations. So I'm a base one. I inquire through the support group that I have that I need to look more into my wife's dealings and what she's using for self-development. But I'm not there yet to ask the right questions. Up until now, I wasn't there to ask the right questions because I was looking for connection without pinpointing exactly what you said. I just didn't have the balls to go in and actually lay it out what I really want.
And I will finalize on this piece. It might be really valuable for both of you to sit down and actually write out a list of what connection means and looks like to both of you. As in, how would connection show up in the physical world for both of you? Does that look like having a date night once a week, once every 2 weeks? Does it look like going out with your girls, your kids, or does it look like having time for yourself or rotating? Does it look like doing a course together or reading books together? Connection shows up in so many different ways, but for you both to understand first what it means to you and how that looks like for you, and then what it means and looks like for your partner is a huge piece. And you guys can then even create like a bucket list of like connection exercises you can do together and activities and things, and maybe do one once a week or once every 2 weeks together.
Yeah, I've never asked that question. What is looking like for you to having a meaningful connection? Yeah, that's very good. So I'll end this call with this remark, and I thank you so much for spending so much time giving me the most valuable, important asset that you have in this life. It was a pleasure, and I'm looking forward for more conversations and hopefully becoming a student of yours.
Thank you so much, Silvius, for having me today. And I look forward to any of your community reaching out and contacting me. It would be an absolute pleasure to connect with them as well.
Thank you, Giovanna. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.